Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about astrology and the suicide of Amanda Todd. Now, some of you out there may have heard this took place actually in 2012. It's nothing like any new news, but I just wanted to take a look at this. This was a rather sad, infamous case of a suicide due to cyberbullying. I just was my inquisitive Gemini moon wanted to say if I saw anything that indicated any indicators or through transits and natal chart of this taking place as far as suicide through cyberbullying. So it's also very sad and a tragic story. I mean, even though it's very belated, my condolences do go out to the family. They probably, no one in the family will probably even see this video, but I'm just going to say it anyway, and just in case. And anyway, well, what happened was on October 10, 2012, there was a 15-year-old girl by the name of Amanda Todd that committed suicide. She hung herself. It was largely, I believe it was the result of being cyberbullied. And the thing is, she had hung herself, and I'm just looking at her natal chart, and people don't think that Arabic parts are insignificant or unimportant. They could be very significant. This chart was done based on it was a solar sunrise chart, because of course I did not have her time of birth available. I could not find her natal chart online. So it's done by placing, what I did was I improvised. I did a chart putting the sun by her ascendant. Now, the thing about this is, being a sun in Sagittarius, this must have been, especially for somebody with the sun in Sagittarius, the basic character and demeanor being, very effervescent, expansive, exuberant, and optimistic, and to have this life taken out of her. And then Moon being in Cancer, this to me, and she probably was very super sensitive to this. And Cancer energy can be about very sensitive to criticism, ridicule. Many of you may know I have my sun in Cancer. Interestingly enough, my sun in Cancer, based on her solar sunrise chart, very close to her 8th house cusp, and it's like I'm putting this focus on her death, and doing so oddly, with a little bit of the sympathetic Cancerian energy and with certain dedication in this video. And another interesting synastry I have with this person, even though she is sadly deceased, my natal Uranus makes a conjunction to her North Node in Libra. So it's like I was destined to really bring her out through astrology. Uranus can be connected with astrology, the internet, of course, as well. So anyway, thing about it is, one thing that really stands out in her chart, of course, is a conjunction from the sun in Sagittarius to Pluto. Pluto can be about coercion, and when you have Pluto by your sun, this could be a person that might, in some cases, could succumb to some kind of form of bullying. Sadly, and really, being a sun in Sagittarius again could have very well strongly taken that exuberant, enthusiastic energy, that life out of her, figuratively speaking. Sadly, she became perhaps more famous due to her passing. Some of that could be attributed to Pluto being on the sun. The sun is where we could shine and stand out. She had brought, I believe, a lot of expansive sun and Sagittarius energy into some. She made some video shortly before she passed away, showing some flashcards, and I believe it was conveying her story as far as being cyberbullied, but you can go confirm that and verify that online. Now, and the thing too is, she as well, I want to get back to, I was talking about the part of suicide, and I went off on a Gemini moon tangent. The part of suicide, based on the solar sunrise chart, she has one of them in Taurus in the 6th house. So this could indicate persistent, maybe suicide due to persistent bullying on a day-to-day basis. The sixth house, of course, the daily routine. She also had another part of suicide in Scorpio, not far from her natal Pluto, in her 12th house. And the thing about it is this, she also at the time when she had committed suicide, she had transit North Node in Scorpio make a very close conjunction to that part of, it's one of those parts of suicide in Scorpio. But again, this was based on the solar sunrise chart in which I put the sun at the same position of ascendant again, just to reaffirm and reinforce that the time of birth is unknown. But thing about it is she, and then having the part of suicide in Scorpio in the 12th house, I'm thinking, wow, this is something where, I mean, the part of Scorpio and Scorpio, I mean, part of suicide in Scorpio, I mean, this could be a person that could have succumbed to her, I mean, to this bullying and all this coercion, and may perhaps killed herself due to people hating her, due to being jealous, due to having a warped fixation with her. It could be due to very sinister enemies. This could be something too where we're talking about Scorpio energy could be, I mean, in a very negative manifestation. I think it inclines to more malevolent behavior than most, and she had, unfortunately, she was victimized by this, and this is something that really could have played a role in her taking her own life, I believe. And thing about this too is, and this could have been being in the 12th house, very strongly tied into secret sorrows as well. Now another thing is that at this time as well, I mean, in her chart she has a cardinal T-square configuration consisting of Saturn. She has Saturn in Aries, making the opposition to her Libra MC and Libra North Node, and having that, both those energies being squared by the focal point, the moon in introverted Cancer. Now my understanding, okay, she with the Saturn making the opposition to the North Node and MC in the solar sunrise chart, well, that could indicate that the father may have been opposed, which I believe he was, at least to some degree, at least to her online activities, which could have affected her public image and reputation. She was doing some singing online, making videos singing, and the thing about it is, unfortunately, this was leading to the cyberbullying and being harassed online. She has the square from the moon in Cancer, in this cardinal, what am I saying? Not Grand Cross, but the cardinal T-square configuration. The moon in Cancer can be the point of overcompensation, overemphasis. That could be where, I mean, having the moon in Cancer and being at that point of overemphasis, overaccentuation, what have you, being near and also being near that 8th house of moral emotional support. The moon Cancer can be really going to maybe the mother. Moon can be connected with the mother, and going to the mother for sympathy. And Cancer energy is sympathy, protectiveness, looking for emotional moral support perhaps from her. My understanding, she would seem to be very close to her mother. And the thing about this too, sadly, I mean, if someone has the moon by their 8th house or in the 8th house, sometimes this could signify a public death, I believe. And now the cardinal T-square, just in general, I mean, cardinal T-square can be about much action, activity, initiative, enterprise, being in a hurry to start things, and really, it could really cause a lot of tension due to that constant need for activity, for being so action-oriented. Cardinal T-square people can often start many things, sometimes even simultaneously, but sometimes may not complete them. Now, at this time, at the time of her suicide, well, the thing I wanted to get at, sadly, at the point of suicide, well, what I want to talk about too is having Saturn in the fourth house. In that solar sunrise chart I did, Saturn in the fourth can indicate despondency sometimes at the end or that latter part of one's life. And being in Aries, it could be due to contentious, combative situations, even ones that might be physical, harmful, that are acrimonious, ones that could cause so due to some volatile actions, I believe. And she was bullied. I mean, as far as physically bullied, I don't know the exact time, but I believe it was within a year prior to her committing suicide. Hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But anyway, now another thing too, what I did notice in the chart is that she has, this is based, again, not to be overly redundant, people, but based on the solar sunrise position, she has the sun, that Sun-Pluto conjunction, and then in Sagittarius, Uranus and Aquarius, and the moon in Cancer, making a Yod configuration. Many of you may know when you have a Yod configuration in astrology, it can be about monumental achievement, prodigious achievement in connection with that apex point of the Yod configuration. A lot of it can be blending the energy of the sextile and injecting it into that focal point of that configuration. We are talking about the sun in Sagittarius. I mean, a lot of this could be about shining, as far as through your just being very exuberant, full of exuberant life, so to speak. Being very jocular, being very positive, the basic character being very positive, expansive, jubilant. And Uranus can be connected with the internet, and really and maybe even some eclectic, original energy, unique energy, and blending that in to that apex point of the Yod, the moon in Cancer. And the moon in Cancer, I mean, the moon itself can be connected with the public. And you have, and really, this could have been done through being in Cancer, being in an introverted way out of the home. Now, she did make YouTube videos, I believe it was out of her home when she was singing, and that's where that monumental achievement could have really been made and accomplished, which really makes her demise even more distressing to me. It makes, I actually do feel, I mean, I don't show it a lot, but I mean, I do when you see me in the videos, but I do, when I see things like this, I'm talking about something that's sad, it really makes me feel sad and melancholy. This was something that, I mean, never should have happened. And to me, it's just terrible when something like this has to occur and transpire. But anyway, people, what I wanted to get at too, a couple other transits, I think, I mean, some transits that played a role at the time when she committed suicide may have factored in. Well, one thing was, now in her progress chart, well, first I want to talk about the transit again of Pluto. Now, Pluto, as many of you may know, can be connected with death. In her chart, where she has that cardinal T-square configuration, again consisting of the Saturn opposition with the MC, conjunction to the North Node in Libra, and also being squared by that focal point. Again, it's a planet of really strong significance, that moon in Cancer. It was made you could argue a long opposition was made to that focal point, the moon in Cancer, by transit Pluto in Capricorn. Now, many of you may know, when one has a transit, when you have a T-square configuration in your chart, when you have a transit that makes an opposition to the focal point in that configuration, often significant things may occur. And sadly, we're talking about Pluto, the planet of death, in depressing, melancholy Capricorn, sadly, and in that first house of the physical body at the time. And Saturn would, of course, being involved in this in her cardinal T-square configuration. That's the planet that could be connected with depression. I think she may have been suffering from this prior to her death. And the thing about this as well, another thing that I wanted to get at is that transit Pluto also made what you may want to call a long conjunction by transit to her. Transit Pluto made a long conjunction by transit to her natal, not to her natal, to her progressed Mercury. The progressed Mercury at the time of her death was around 11 degrees Capricorn. And transit Pluto was like 7 degrees Capricorn. And I mean, she died. I mean, I would say that's by asphyxia. I mean, when you hang yourself, you're cutting off, you know, your breathing, that could be connected. Mercury can be connected with breathing. And you're talking about things in progression, in progressed charts. Can often be connected with things that are planned. And this energy is in premeditative Capricorn. So there you go. Another thing I wanted to talk about was the fact that she also had, at this time when she passed sadly, is that there was what was happening was there was there was a mutable T-square configuration occurring at this time. She had transit. She had the transit Chiron in Pisces in that third house. Black Moon Lilith in Gemini, near her 7th house cusp of open adversaries, and at that time as well had transit Venus and Virgo in that 9th house. And the 9th, I mean, so you're looking at all this energy, the Chiron, and what this did was this all made adverse aspects to her natal Sun, Pluto, Sagittarius conjunction, forming a mutable grand cross. And when you have a mutable grand cross in astrology, and whether it's formed in your natal chart or if it's formed through a transit, this can often be a time where one may have to endure some strong predicament or tribulation. And this is a time like and it's often referred to as a cross to bear. And when you're talking about all this mutable energy, can be one that has a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, a lot of worrisome energy. Now, I say in my videos, you know, about the stars may impel, but do not compel. And that was actually, as you know, was said by someone else long before I said it. But I say in my videos to emphasize that to others. But sometimes when you have astrological energy, it becomes very hard to resist, and I mean to fight it and combat it. And this was just so much overwhelming energy. I think what was going against her was adversarial at this time. You had transit Chiron in Pisces in the 3rd house. This could be suffering through betrayal, through classmates, by ones that might have been deceptive or duplicitous, and also maybe even the dissolving of the rational mind. The Black Moon Lilith in Gemini in transit, being very close proximity to her 7th house cusp, can indicate the revelation or unveiling of open adversaries that are gossiping, that are about prevarication, that are mischievous, that are lying, that are slanderers. That one, and also too, I believe she had some kind of mental illness, and may want to look that up. But that being said, I believe that came more to light at this time, and it was through the 7th house cusp of open adversaries, open enemies, were bringing this out, I believe, more. It was becoming more known to others. And then you're talking about the Venus and Virgo transit the 9th house at this time. And Venus and Virgo, I would say in a negative manifestation, could be about the enjoyment of being critical, being judgmental, making inflammatory remarks, criticizing, ridiculing, and being in the 9th house of publishing. A lot of this was being, you could say, published on the internet. And then when you're talking about all that energy making all these negative adverse aspects to her Pluto Sun conjunction, this is something which came down to a life or death matter, sadly. And sadly, it was death that was chosen, and in a way, I think that's how that manifested, sadly. And I mean, Pluto was involved in this. And this is a lesson for other people out there. I mean, if you have something in your chart where you're experiencing some grand cross, and or whether you have it natally, it's through transit, and you have Pluto or say or Saturn involved. Saturn is that depressing, sad planet. Pluto can be about death. You really want to really look at that very closely, even in any malefic that could be involved. Neptune, of course, is about confusion, deception, betrayal, alcohol, drugs, chaos, confusion. You want to, and I mean, really, and Uranus can be about disruption or some kind of unanticipated change, something very spontaneous happening. Those are some things you really want to look at. And again, I'm going to close with, again, reiterating about, giving my condolences. My heart goes out to the family member. She seemed like this was a beautiful young woman, and that had her life snuffed out really, I mean, really much earlier. She was not, she wasn't, I mean, people can argue and say, well, she was meant to go at that time. That's what happened, but she shouldn't have gone at that time. This is a terrible, devastating tragedy, something very traumatic and tragic. And again, my heart does go out to the family of this woman, and I hope one of the members actually, at least one of the family members actually hear it. And if you're somebody out there that may actually, by some remote free chance, you may know one of the family members and you view this video, by all means send them the link to it. But it's just very terrible that something like this had to transpire. And I'm hoping now, and because of her death, if I don't remember exactly precisely what was said online, but something about at least one of the parents had done something to set up some some group or something that would help, something with cyberbullying, whether maybe something that would I guess the group might inspire others. Maybe to really do something, to do things to help. I don't know what word I'm looking for, to preclude or help diminish cyberbullying, but you might want to look that up online and confirm that, people. Anyway, people, this is Edwin Learnard, and until next time, stay well.